But unfortunately for her, she found herself scared of him instead. Then, out of nowhere, she was startled when an insect suddenly appeared. Nishikata tried to keep Takagi from falling, but in the process, he tripped and injured his knee. Because of this, she considered it one of the worst days, especially since it happened during her vacation. Takagi, however, didn't hesitate to offer him a handkerchief for his wound. She let him know that, even though it felt like the worst day for her, it ended up being one of the best, because she got to see him. His words made her blush. One day at the mall, she bought the latest volume of her Forbidden Love manga. She was eager to rush home and read it, but her plans were interrupted when she ran into Takagi, who, as always, was ready to tease her. He spotted her near the bookstore and asked if she had picked up the newest volume of that manga. Nishikata panicked. She didn't want to admit to something so embarrassing. So, she tried to steer the conversation by challenging him to guess which volume she had bought. Takagi looked at her with a knowing, triumphant smile. She began to doubt herself, but stuck with her story. When he asked her to show him the book, she was disappointed. She had hoped he wouldn't guess correctly. Later, just as she was ready to go home, Takagi stopped her and asked for help picking out a swimsuit. At the store, Takagi began trying on different combinations and asked Nishikata to hand her the various options. As expected, Nishikata was extremely nervous and blushing the entire time. Things got worse when Nakai and Mono appeared. Flustered, she hid in one of the fitting rooms. Thankfully, they didn't stay long, especially after Mono noticed that Takagi was with a boy. After they left, Takagi invited Nishikata to continue their swimsuit search. As he showed her more options, she could barely react, too embarrassed to show much of anything. The next morning, they met again to study, this time at Takagi's house, specifically in her room, where she had offered to help Nishikata prepare. This simple fact made him incredibly nervous. It was the first time a girl had ever entered his room. Takagi looked around, taking everything in. Her eyes scanned the space carefully, and that's when she noticed it, a full collection of Forbidden Love manga on his shelf. The room itself was plain, minimalistic even. Takagi casually mentioned that his room looked a lot like hers. It didn't sound like a compliment, more like an awkward attempt to say she actually liked it. Trying to move past the embarrassment, they decided to get started on their study session. But there was a problem, only one chair. So, Takagi suggested they sit on the floor and use the bed as a table. Once they settled in, Nishikata waited for Takagi to begin helping him. But instead, she smirked and said, "I never said I'd help. I just said, let's study at your place asterisk." And just like that, our poor hero was left to do his homework all alone. As he worked, Nishikata couldn't help but glance at Takagi. His concentration wavered. He made a mistake and reached for the eraser, just as Takagi reached for it too. Their hands touched. In that brief moment, Nishikata froze. It felt like a scene straight out of Forbidden Love asterisk. Flustered, he quickly stood up and blurted out an excuse. He was going to get them some barley tea. Hours passed. Eventually, Takagi stood to leave. But before going, she turned to him and said she'd be back soon. Summer vacation was over, it was time to return to school. On the first day back, a powerful storm swept through the city. Caught up in the dramatic weather, Nishikata threw his arms into the air and shouted, convinced he had the power to control the wind. Right on cue, Takagi arrived, just in time to see him in all his theatrical glory. And, as always, she couldn't resist teasing him. She raised her arms and mimicked him with a laugh. Then she asked, "Notice anything different about me?" He looked around. "You didn't bring your bike today," he replied. "Exactly," she smiled. "Now, can you guess why?" And just like that, the challenge was on. She gave him a time limit to figure it out. It took a while for a plastic bag drifting in the wind to reach them. During that time, Nishikata was scrambling to come up with an excuse, anything to explain why he hadn't brought his bike. All he could manage was that the wind might blow away his school uniform. He hesitated, unsure how convincing that sounded. Before he could say more, the plastic bag floated right up to them, marking the end of his chance. Takagi quickly stepped in, saying he didn't bring his bike because it was too dangerous to ride during a storm. With that settled, the two began walking to school together. Along the way, Takagi teased Nishikata, mimicking his movements and calling herself the goddess of the wind. Annoyed, he shouted at her to stop teasing him. She agreed, sort of, but threw in one last tease, challenging him to a race to school. Later that day, their class had a marathon. Nishikata felt confident, he'd been training for weeks and was determined to finish first. Everything was going according to plan, until Takagi caught up to him. She started teasing him mid-run, trying to throw him off. She picked up the pace, and Nishikata did the same, refusing to let her win. Then he made a bold proposal. If she could get 50 meters ahead of him, she'd win. He thought the odds were in his favor, until she actually did it. It turns out, according to school rules, girls run a shorter distance than boys. Takagi reached the girls' finish line and turned back with a smug smile, leaving Nishikata stunned and behind. Later that afternoon, the two were walking home from school. Nishikata came up with a new challenge. A "don't laugh" game. Whoever laughed first would have to do whatever the winner said. Takagi agreed, but Nishikata was sure he'd win this time. His plan: tease her until she broke. But things didn't go as expected. He found himself too embarrassed to even touch her. In a panic, he resorted to tickling her. She didn't laugh, at first. But then she started making ridiculous faces, pretending to lose. It was too much. He couldn't hold it in anymore, and burst out laughing. As punishment, he tells her she has to stop eating rice, something incredibly painful for her. But soon, relief washes over her when she realizes he's just joking. The real punishment: she's banned from reading any forbidden love manga. This hits Nishikata hard. She would have preferred giving up rice over her beloved manga. Meanwhile, in another scene, Mina, Sanae, and Yukari revisit the same tunnel that our main characters once passed through. Despite the darkness, the girls are full of energy and laughter. None of them feel scared. By the end of the walk, Mina is overjoyed to have shared this moment with her friends, though she quietly reflects that moments like this might not come again, at least until next summer vacation. A few days later, Nishikata gets her first cell phone. The first thing she does: add her friends Takao and Kimura to her contacts. Then she hatches a plan to get away from Takagi, by lending him her phone, hoping he'll ask for her email. But things don't go as planned. Instead of asking for her email, he just explores the phone's features. After class, frustrated by her failed attempt, Nishikata decides to ask Takagi directly. Takagi quickly catches on and teases her, asking why she wants his email. Cornered, Nishikata admits the truth: she wants it so she can tease him from home. Hearing this, Takagi agrees to share his email, but with a playful warning: they're now officially in each other's contacts, so he can tease her too. This realization hits Nishikata. While she can now tease Takagi from home, the same goes for him. She starts to regret her plan. The next morning, Takagi is in the classroom cleaning the blackboard. Nishikata shows up to help, just like he promised. Looking tired, he asks if Takagi slept well. Takagi confesses he didn't. He was up chatting with friends all night. Nishikata advises against that, saying it could cause problems later, based on his own experience. This makes him wonder, who exactly has Takagi been chatting with? But instead of asking outright, he starts plotting his next move. Nishikata casually asks Takagi if she's chatting with her dad. She replies that she isn't. It would be unreasonable to chat with her dad all day, after all. Curious, she flips the question back at him. Nishikata smirks and says he'll tell her who he's been chatting with, but only if she tells him what she talked about with her friends last night. What she doesn't know is that Nishikata hasn't been chatting with friends, he's actually been watching videos. He tells her this and, to prove it, sends a creepy video of a goat supposedly possessed by a demon, hoping to scare her. But to his disappointment, Takagi isn't fazed at all. She calmly says it's not scary, at least, not during the day. Frustrated, Nishikata plans to send her another horror video later that night, thinking it'll be more effective in the dark. But before he can carry out his plan, Takagi calls him. To his shock, she already knows what he's up to. Since they're on the phone, he never gets the chance to send the video, and because neither of them hangs up, they end up staying on the call all night. Nishikata doesn't get any sleep. The next day, he spots two cats fighting and rushes to take a photo for a funny photo contest he started with Takao and Kimura. But right as he snaps the shot, the cats run off. All he gets is a plain picture of a wall. Later, he tells Takagi about the contest. She gets excited and makes a funny face, which gives Nishikata an idea. He'll take pictures of himself making funny faces to win the contest. Takagi agrees to let him take a photo of her, but only if he does everything she asks first. As they walk home, she doesn't make any demands. Instead, Nishikata uses the chance to tease her and snap some candid shots of her making silly or scary faces. When Takagi sees the photos, she bursts out laughing. At that moment, she smiles naturally, giving Nishikata the perfect chance to take the best photo of all. Ironically, she ends up posing and smiling, completely ruining his plan to catch her off guard. In a last-ditch effort, Nishikata tries to bargain. He'll delete her smiling photo if she deletes all the embarrassing ones he took. But knowing Takagi, she probably has another trick up her sleeve. Takagi refuses the deal, saying she looks good in the picture, so she doesn't care whether Nishikata deletes it or not. However, as he walks away, she calls out, warning him not to show it to anyone, because he would be the one embarrassed. Hearing this, Nishikata decides not to delete the photo, thinking it might come in handy later. A few days later, on his way to school, Nishikata accidentally walks into a pole. Trying to play it cool, he pretends nothing happened. Unfortunately for him, Takagi appears beside him, walking to school together as usual. Desperate to divert attention from the accident, Nishikata starts talking about how he feels taller lately, joking that his winter uniform fits better now, making him feel physically bigger. He then teases Takagi, claiming he's taller than Earth. Takagi smirks and decides to play along, first pretending to take back what he said, then challenging him to prove he's grown. She leads him to a nearby shrine, where they stand back to compare their heights. Trying to get the upper hand, Nishikata stands on tiptoe and declares they're the same height. Takagi, suspicious, asks to measure again, this time with him standing normally in front of her. To his surprise, she believes him when he says he's taller. He congratulates her, then jokingly laments that growing up is a bad thing, it causes disorientation and poor vision. As proof, he reminds her that just minutes earlier, he ran into a pole. Realizing she did see the accident, Nishikata gets flustered. At school, Takagi continues to tease him, touching him with her cold hands, making him squirm. This playful moment catches the attention of Mina and her friends, who begin to suspect that Takagi and Nishikata might be dating. Later, when they see Takagi alone, they ask her directly. With a mischievous grin, she confirms that she's dating Nishikata. Later on, Mina rushes to Nishikata, announcing to their friends that she knows the truth about his relationship with Takagi. Because of this, Nishikata teases Takagi and asks her why she told Mina and her friends that they were dating. Takagi responds by challenging him to walk her home if he wants to find out. A few minutes later, the two are walking together. Nishikata tries to turn the tables and tease Takagi into revealing the truth, but, as usual, she flips the situation on him. She asks an embarrassing question: would he rather get a kiss from her or receive zeros on all his tests? Nishikata blushes at the question. Though he wants to say he'd choose the second option, he shyly admits he feels safer with the first. Takagi then steps closer, making him think she's about to kiss him. However, nothing happens, she just gets close to compare their heights, leaving Nishikata flustered. The next day, on his way to school, Nishikata tries to pet a cat, but it runs away before he can get close. Just then, Takagi arrives and sees what he was trying to do. As they walk together, she stops to pet her neighbor's cat. Nishikata watches in amazement as the cat lets Takagi touch it with ease. He feels a strong pang of jealousy, he wants to pet the cat too. When Takagi asks if he wants to try, he lies and says he doesn't like cats. She doesn't believe him and teases him until he admits the truth. Seeing through him, Takagi steps aside and gives him a chance. But when Nishikata approaches, the cat runs away again. Later, in art class, both are busy drawing. Nishikata sees an opportunity for a prank and sketches Takagi as a wild, demonic character. When he shows it to her, she looks confused, her face unintentionally funny, causing Nishikata to burst out laughing. He then tells her to try and recreate that expression, suggesting she pay close attention to every detail of her face next time. After hearing this, Nishikata is disappointed that his plan failed. As if that wasn't enough, Takagi teases him further by showing him a drawing she made of him. She's drawn him as a shy, nervous boy, complete with his signature blush on his cheeks. This embarrasses him deeply. After class, Nishikata gets ready to go home, but he can't leave just yet. It's his turn to clean the classroom. When Takagi finds out, she proposes a game of rock paper scissors. If she loses, she'll stay and help him clean. Nishikata agrees, and to his surprise, Takagi loses. For once, he's thrilled to have beaten her. As they clean together, Takagi casually reveals that she actually let him win. She knew he would pick paper. She goes on to explain that she learned about his upcoming transfer from Mina and her group, who used tarot cards to predict the future. But that wasn't all, they also predicted good fortune and love for the two of them. Without hesitation, Takagi asks Nishikata if he likes a girl. Blushing, he denies it, saying it's nothing like that. But as the question lingers in his mind, he starts to wonder if there might be some truth to it. The next day, Nishikata arrives at school in high spirits. His horoscope says today is his lucky day. Feeling confident, he plans to pull a prank on Takagi. But to his shock, she already knows his zodiac sign, Cancer, and predicts he'll try something sneaky. Crushed once again, Nishikata remembers a line from the day's horoscope. Encouraged by it, he gathers his courage and tells Takagi that he wants to walk home with her. Seconds later, he regrets it. Embarrassed by how cheesy he sounded, his face turns bright red, and he runs off in a panic, leaving Takagi behind. But after he's gone, Takagi blushes, for the first time. His words touched her deeply, stirring something in her heart. Smiling to herself, she walks home, happy. It's the start of a new school day, and Nishikata receives a love letter. She immediately suspects it's from Takagi, and, knowing her history of teasing him, assumes it must be some kind of prank. Curious and confused, she watches Takagi and notices how unusually nervous he looks. Concerned, she asks if something is wrong. Trying to act like everything is normal, she brushes it off, but the blush on her cheeks betrays her emotions. Takagi, of course, notices and begins teasing her in his usual playful way. At one point, she realizes her book is closed, and understands that Takagi must have already read the love letter. With a grin, Takagi admits that he wrote the letter and encourages her to read it. Nervous and still suspicious it might be a joke, Nishikata finally opens it. The letter reads, "Let's walk home together." This simple request completely flusters Nishikata, and as expected, she blushes deeply. Embarrassed, she yells at Takagi, scolding him for using a love letter instead of just asking her directly. Unfortunately, her outburst catches the attention of Professor Tanity, who scolds her in front of the class, much to Takagi's amusement. Let's rewind to earlier that same day, before the new student ceremony. Nishikata arrives late to school. When he tries to explain his tardiness to the teacher, he's cut off and told to sit down without a chance to defend himself. He takes a seat near the front, but the teacher quickly reassigns him to a seat in the back, next to Takagi. Takagi isn't there yet, but when he does arrive, his friendly nature leads him to strike up a conversation. He casually asks Nishikata why he was late. Flustered, Nishikata blames someone named Takagi. Confused, Takagi arrives late to class as well, curious about this strange excuse. After the ceremony, he confronts Nishikata and offers to guess the real reason for his tardiness. To Nishikata's amazement, Takagi correctly deduces that he was late because he had to drop something off at the Lost and Found. The accuracy of the guess shocks Nishikata so much that he accidentally yells out loud, earning another reprimand from the teacher. The reason Takagi knew what the lost item was because it turned out to be Nishikata's own handkerchief. Back in the present, Nishikata still had Takagi's handkerchief, the one she had lent him when he hurt his knee. He tried to return it the next day, but couldn't bring himself to do it. He was too upset. Professor Tanabe had announced that all students would have to switch seats via a lottery. Takagi drew number 4, placing her in the front row. Nishikata drew number 29, which put him all the way in the back. This meant they would be sitting far apart. And they weren't the only ones, Nakai and Mono were separated too. Mono was especially sad since she wouldn't be sitting next to the boy she liked. But then, something unexpected happened. Kimura, not wanting to sit in the front where Professor Tanabe might watch her closely, decided to swap seats with Nakai. As a result, Mono moved next to Takagi, and now she and Nakai were together again. Meanwhile, Nishikata ended up sitting beside Takagi once more, because he was the one who had helped rearrange Mono's seat. Overjoyed to be close to her again, he finally returned her handkerchief. He thanked her not only for lending it to him, but also for helping make the seat switch possible. Then, he shyly admitted that he truly wanted to be near her. Takagi blushed and said she hoped they could stay side by side forever. Later, Takagi looked fondly at the handkerchief. As she unfolded it, a small note slipped out. She opened it and read the message inside. It melted her heart, and her feelings for Nishikata grew even stronger.